Trigger warning. This episode covers tremendous loss, which can be triggering. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. What if I told you that lightning struck the same family twice? 2 toddlers gone under the same roof, in the arms of trust, and the heart of that trust was their grandmother? This isn't a headline from a dark fictional thriller. This is real life. This is Florida. This is the haunting story of Tracey Nix, a woman who once rocked her grandchildren to sleep and who now faces the rest of her days haunted by silence. 2 separate tragedies, 2 separate years, 2 precious lives. Ezra and Uriel, lost in her care. One wandered off into a pond while she napped. The other was left strapped in a car on a sweltering day, windows up, no one watching. And the question everyone is asking, how does this happen twice? And now, with the courtroom silent and the judge's gavel having fallen, the world is left to decide. Is 5 years behind bars justice? Or is it mercy cloaked in law? Was this a case of tragic forgetfulness or repeated negligence? And more importantly, how do families survive when the person you love becomes the person you can't forgive? Before we dive deeper into this emotional and deeply unsettling case, I want to take a moment to thank you for being here. If you're new to the conversation, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you never miss an episode that challenges your heart, your mind, and your perspective. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe justice was truly served? You can also listen to this episode and all my other deep dives on the Life Points with Rhonda podcast, available on all streaming platforms. Visit my website, www.lifepointswithrhonda.com. Contact me, lifepointswithrhonda@gmail.com. Follow me everywhere. YouTube, Life Points with Rhonda 2968. Instagram, Life Points with Rhonda. Facebook, Life Points with Rhonda. TikTok, Life Points with Rhonda. Patreon, Life Points with Rhonda. Now let's take a breath, because the story we're about to explore, it's going to stay with you. Today's episode is one of those stories that makes your heart stop and your soul ache. It forces us to confront one of the deepest, most painful questions in life. What happens when love turns lethal? Not out of malice, not out of hate, but through oversight, distraction, or something even harder to name. We're diving into the tragic and controversial case of Tracey Nix, a Florida grandmother who, in just under a year, lost 2 of her grandchildren, 16-month-old Ezra and 7-month-old Uriel, while they were in her care. These weren't random accidents. These were preventable tragedies that happened in the safety of home, in the hands of someone who should have been their protector. And now, after emotional courtroom testimonies and months of public scrutiny, Tracey Nix has been sentenced to 5 years in prison. But as always, the story isn't that simple. There's grief, there's outrage, there's guilt, there's forgiveness, or the refusal to give it, and behind every headline is a family shattered, still trying to pick up the pieces. In today's conversation, we're going to unpack every layer of this case. What really happened? How did the justice system respond? And most importantly, what does it teach us about trust, responsibility, and the unspoken weight that caregivers carry. This isn't just a news story. It's a conversation about the human condition, about how quickly life can change, about accountability, and about how families are forced to live with the unimaginable. The first tragedy, Ezra's final moments. It was December 2021 in Florida, an ordinary day that would soon become an unforgettable scar etched into the hearts of an entire family. Tracey Nix, a 65-year-old retired school principal and well-known figure in her small community, had agreed to watch her 16-month-old grandson, Ezra, shock. A curly-haired, wide-eyed little boy who, like most toddlers, had just begun to explore the world on wobbly legs with wonder in his eyes. He loved toy trucks, birds in the yard, and cuddling up with his favorite blanket. He was the light in his parents' lives, and on this day, they entrusted his care to someone they thought they could trust without question. But somewhere between comfort and complacency, something went wrong. Reports say Tracey was inside the home. Some sources claim she had fallen asleep. Others say she simply lost track of time. Either way, Ezra wandered out. Alone. Just outside her rural Sebring home was a nearby pond, one that would soon become a silent grave. By the time Tracey realized Ezra was missing, it was too late. First responders were called. The family rushed to the scene, and Ezra was pulled from the water. Lifeless, cold, gone. And yet, despite the unimaginable grief, no charges were filed. Authorities deemed the drowning a tragic accident, and the family, while devastated, had to make peace with what felt like a cruel twist of fate. They mourned. They buried their son. They tried somehow to go on, but fate wasn't done with them. The second tragedy, Uriel and the hot car. Less than a year had passed. The wounds from Ezra's death hadn't even begun to scar over. And somehow, some way, this family was forced to confront another loss. It was November 1st, 2022. A day like any other in the warmth of Central Florida. Tracey Nix had her granddaughter, 7-month-old Uriel Shock, in her care. Uriel was the newest addition to the Shock family, just learning to crawl, already lighting up rooms with her gummy smile and innocent laughter. She was a symbol of hope, a reminder that life could still bloom after so much loss. Tracey had gone to lunch with friends. That's where things took a devastating turn. After the meal, she drove home, parked, closed the door, walked inside. But Uriel, still strapped in her car seat, was left behind. Outside, temperatures soared past 90 degrees. Inside the car, it quickly became a death trap. For several hours, Uriel sat there, alone. The clock ticked. The sun burned. And by the time Tracey realized what had happened, the unthinkable had happened again. Uriel was unresponsive. She died from hyperthermia, a condition caused by extreme heat exposure. The same family, the same caregiver, 2 children, 2 completely preventable deaths. But this time, the state of Florida said enough is enough. Prosecutors filed charges. And while many believed the tragedy of Ezra's death had been swept under the rug, Uriel's death would now be the legal tipping point. Tracey Nix was arrested and charged with aggravated manslaughter of a child. a first-degree felony in Florida. The headlines exploded, the internet ignited, and the public's reaction was swift, emotional, and divided. Some screamed for justice. Others questioned whether an elderly woman, racked with grief and remorse, deserved prison at all. But what no one could ignore was that 2 children were gone. The trial and sentencing, a courtroom divided by tears. When Tracey Nix entered the courtroom, it was as though time stood still. The grief was thick. The silence was heavy. On one side of the gallery sat her family, fractured and barely breathing, under the weight of unprocessed trauma. On the other side, a jury prepared to weigh the law against human tragedy. Prosecutors made their case clear. This wasn't just forgetfulness. It was criminal negligence. They emphasized that Tracey had already experienced one grandchild's death in her care, and yet failed to implement any precautions, routines, or reminders to protect Uriel. The state argued that her behavior wasn't just reckless, it was preventable. They wanted accountability, and they asked for prison time. But Tracey's defense team painted a different picture. They portrayed her as a heartbroken woman, overwhelmed by grief, guilt, and confusion. They said she was suffering from cognitive decline, that the events were tragic but not malicious, that the weight of her mistakes would be a lifelong sentence in itself. And then came one of the most emotionally charged moments of the trial. Kayla Schock, Uriel, and Ezra's mother took the stand. Her voice cracked, but her message was strong. If I'm capable of moving forward, of forgiving, then I believe the court should take that into consideration. Her words were both stunning and controversial. She defended her mother in that moment, not to erase the pain, but to humanize it. Still, the judge wasn't swayed entirely. Tracey Nix was found not guilty of aggravated manslaughter, but she was convicted of child neglect causing great bodily harm, a lesser, but still serious charge. The court handed down the maximum sentence allowed under that charge: 5 years in prison. Some cried relief. Others cried injustice. And the internet, well, it did what it always does. It polarized. Was 5 years too lenient for the deaths of 2 children? Or was it a punishment befitting a woman already serving an eternal sentence in her heart? The moment the sentence was read, the world responded loudly. Online forums, podcasts, legal analysts, and grieving parents across the country weighed in. And as with most high-profile tragedies, the reactions fell across a wide spectrum, from fierce outrage to quiet compassion. On one end were those who felt the justice system had failed these children, not once, but twice. They saw 5 years as a slap on the wrist, a weak response to a double tragedy that many believe could have been entirely prevented. These voices pointed to a hard truth. If this had been a daycare worker or a nanny, would the outcome have been different? Would the public's empathy stretch as far? Then there were those who looked at Tracey Nix not through a lens of punishment, but of heartbreak. They saw an aging woman whose life it was already decimated, a grandmother who would never see those babies grow up, graduate, or get married, a woman imprisoned in her own grief. And they questioned, what more could the law do that life hadn't already done? Even mental health professionals weighed in, raising concerns about cognitive decline, generational stress, and the blurred line between aging and accountability. If Tracey genuinely forgot Uriel in the car, was it neglect or a symptom of something deeper, something medical? And yet, others in the conversation brought up race and privilege. Would the system have responded the same way if Tracey were a woman of color? Would empathy have come so freely? Or would the book have been thrown with less hesitation? It's a question we must always ask, even when the answer is uncomfortable. This case has become more than just a courtroom verdict. It's now a mirror reflecting how we, as a society, weigh intention against impact, love against liability, and pain against punishment. The aftermath, the family, the healing, and what comes next. In the quiet, after the sentencing, after the camera stopped rolling and the courtroom was cleared, the real work began. The healing, or at least the attempt, for Kayla and Drew Schock, the parents of Ezra and Uriel. No sentence, no apology, and no legal resolution could ever fill the silence left behind. Their lives are split in two, before the losses and after. They've buried not one, but two children, and they must now learn to coexist with that kind of pain, a grief that doesn't shrink, but reshapes everything it touches. Their relationship with Tracey Nix is forever altered. A bond once rooted in trust and unconditional love now stands on fractured ground. Forgiveness, if it exists, will be a process, not a moment. And even if Kayla's words on the witness stand reflected compassion, it doesn't erase the sorrow in her eyes or the lingering questions in her heart. Tracey, now 67, began her 5-year sentence carrying not just the weight of incarceration, but the burden of being the central figure in two of the most devastating days of her family's life. She has reportedly been placed in an inpatient facility for evaluation and care due to mental health concerns. And while some see this as leniency, others see it as a small acknowledgement of the emotional and psychological complexity of this case. But for the rest of us, the public, the caregivers, the parents, the grandparents, the lesson here is sobering and necessary. Negligence doesn't always wear an evil face. Sometimes it wears the face of love, and that's what makes it so dangerous. This story isn't just about blame. It's about awareness, about creating systems, safeguards, and habits to prevent tragedies like this from happening again. It's about reminding ourselves, especially in this overstimulated, distracted, always-on world, to slow down, to double-check, to never assume, because sometimes the cost of one moment of forgetfulness is a life that can never be brought back. How this ties into relationships. At its core, this heartbreaking story isn't just about the legal system. It's about relationships and how fragile they truly are when trust is broken. It's about the invisible contracts we make with the people we love, the ones who help us raise our children, the ones we lean on during our most vulnerable moments, the ones we never imagine we'll have to question. In relationships, especially within families, we expect love to be enough. We expect that love will translate to care, attentiveness, and protection. But love, as powerful as it is, must also be paired with responsibility. Intentions alone cannot raise children safely, and when those we trust fall short, not out of cruelty, but out of complacency or distraction, the ripple effect can be devastating. This story is also a reminder of how grief can pull families apart or bring them together in a new way. The Schock family will never be the same, but their choice to stand in the courtroom and speak truth with pain, with grace, with vulnerability, speaks to the complexity of what it means to love someone who has caused you unimaginable hurt. Forgiveness, trust, accountability, these aren't just words. They are the foundations of our human connections. And when one cracks, it takes everything we have to decide, do we rebuild or do we walk away? This isn't just a cautionary tale about caregiving. It's a real and raw example of how quickly relationships can unravel when tragedy strikes and how much strength it takes to even begin to repair what's been lost. If this story moved you, made you think, or brought tears to your eyes, I encourage you to share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. These conversations matter, not just for awareness, but for healing, for prevention, and for understanding how deeply relationships shape every part of our lives. Leave a comment below and tell me, do you believe the justice system got it right? Or do you feel this was a missed opportunity to set a stronger precedent on caregiver responsibility? Don't forget to subscribe to the Life Points with Rhonda podcast on all major streaming platforms so you never miss an episode that speaks truth and love in equal measure. You can also find everything we do at www.lifepointswithrhonda.com. Contact me directly at lifepointswithrhonda@gmail.com. Stay connected and follow along. YouTube, Life Points with Rhonda 2968. Instagram, Our Life Points with Rhonda. Facebook, Life Points with Rhonda. TikTok, Our Life Points with Rhonda. Patreon, Life Points with Rhonda. Thank you for holding space with me today. As always, take care of your heart, protect your peace, and remember, every life point matters. Thank you for watching. If you found value in today's video, I invite you to take your journey even further with my podcast, Life Points with Rhonda, where we dive deep into relationships, personal growth, and the wisdom that helps you thrive. Tune in on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and all major streaming platforms for powerful insights that can transform your life. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more uplifting content like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear this message today. Stay connected with me on Instagram, Facebook, and Patreon. Life Points with Rhonda. Visit my website at lifepointswithrhonda.com for exclusive content, coaching, and more. Thank you for your support. Until next time, take care and stay phenomenal.